It was 2019, and I had been working with ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft for about 3 years. I very much enjoyed the job because it offered me a lot of flexibility with my schedule, which was particularly important to me at that time. One summer night, just a week or so before the 4th of July, I was on one of my usual routes, driving 2 women home from the airport. They lived in a tiny town called Hopewell, about an hour from Nashville's airport. I'm generally a quiet person and don't typically engage in conversation with passengers unless they seem to want to talk. Usually I just have some soft music going. The women looked especially exhausted as it was nearing midnight, and they mentioned having had a long flight. Driving down a dark and quiet country road nearing their town, I saw the taillights of a truck glowing in a patch of trees just off to the side, and when I got closer, I noticed 2 men staring at us, both bigger men with their gazes seemingly very suspicious as we approached. One man quickly went to turn off the lights of their vehicle while the other stood and continued to stare. Thinking they might be having some trouble, I decided to pull over, roll down the window, and ask if they needed any assistance. They both looked at me, hunched over as if they were carefully observing me and the women in my vehicle. Without saying a word, they simply turned around and got into their truck. I figured it wasn't really my business, so I rolled up the window and continued the short remaining distance to the women's home. Upon arriving, I helped them carry their bags and luggage to the door and wished them a good night. They gave me a generous tip, which was nice considering the long drive. Heading back towards Nashville along the same route, I noticed the truck again, this time pulling out from the woods. I turned off my high beams as I saw them, and they suddenly sped off ahead of me, screeching their tires in haste. Just then, I noticed the truck's tailgate open as they hit the gas, and moments later, something fairly large fell out, landing on the road ahead. Just moments later, as I approached the object, the truck ahead slammed on its brakes and stopped in the middle of the road. Though I was tired and just wanted to get home, I couldn't help but look at what had fallen as I drove around it. As I got closer and strained my eyes to see, I was horrified to clearly see an arm protruding from a wrapped blanket. It appeared to be a woman's arm. I was in shock for a moment, my heart pounding rapidly. Could that really be a dead woman? I subconsciously wanted to reject the thought, but I stopped my car, put it in park, and quickly ran to check. Then, to my absolute horror, after uncovering her, I saw the cold, dead stare of a woman. I heard the doors of the truck ahead open and saw both men get out, the figures barely illuminated by the moon's glow. Still in absolute shock, I heard gunshots ringing moments later. One of the blasts hit my car. Terrified and filled with adrenaline, I raced back into my car and sped off in the opposite direction, putting as much distance between me and those men as possible. These people were insane. Eventually, the gunfire stopped, and the men got back into their truck. Though it was difficult to unlock my phone and dial 911 due to my increasing nervousness, I finally reached an operator and described the situation as the truck headed back to the body. Staying on the line with the operator, I drove away as quickly as I could, having to take a different route to avoid those men. Not a single second passed that entire night, and frankly the next couple days, that I didn't think about that occurrence. Thankfully, those 2 men were eventually found and arrested. The woman was found dead. I wondered what those men were doing that night. I mean, why were they parked near the woods? Did they try to dispose of her there and then change their plans because they felt they were seen? I never found out their intentions. A few years have passed, and I still can't get that nightmare out of my head. I've gone to therapy and tried to find peace with this memory, hoping it would fade. Yet, every time I'm driving down one of those dark country roads, The cold gaze of that woman's dead face haunts me. Back in the late 80s, when I was just 19, I was dating a boy named Jack. He had just come back to our hometown, Castle Rock, after finishing his first year of college. We treasured every moment we spent together, often going on casual dates and hanging out with a familiar group of friends from high school. As the 4th of July arrived, we started contemplating our plans. Jack mentioned that our friend David had driven to Nebraska to buy a bunch of fireworks since they were heavily restricted in Colorado. He and some others planned to set them off near an old abandoned house that also offered a good view of the city's fireworks display. So we decided to join them. As we approached, we had to navigate around a chained gate, barely squeezing between two trees. Continuing down the dark dirt road, the house came into view, dimly lit by the setting sun that was just moments away from disappearing below the horizon. The house was exactly as you'd imagine, quite creepy. The old, rotting wood and collapsing roof made me hesitant to go inside. It also felt like the kind of place where ghosts and other freaky things would lurk. We were the last to arrive among the dozen or so people who planned to come. Without hesitation, David launched the first bottle rocket to kick off the night. We had also brought plenty of booze and a boombox to play music while we continued setting off more rockets and Roman candles. After roughly an hour of setting off firecrackers and a few beers deep, Jack suggested we go inside the house to the second floor to get a better view of the fireworks show. I was pretty hesitant, but I guess after a couple of beers my worry subsided. As we entered the house, we lit a sparkler for light to navigate through the trashed interior. The discolored, torn wallpaper and the musty, damp smell of mold filled the air. Going upstairs, I clung tightly to Jack, nervous that the creaking floorboards might give out. Right when the sparkler went out, the upstairs bedroom lit up with the colorful glow of the first firework, leading us the rest of the way to the window. The fireworks were incredible. They were launched so close, just beyond the tree line. Each explosion reverberated through your body, and the beautiful lights illuminated the surroundings. After a particular loud boom, I saw someone slowly emerging from the trees, just barely lit by the fireworks above. I assumed it was one of the others down below, but as the display went on, the figure kept creeping towards us. I signaled to Jack, pointing out the figure that began to resemble a young woman. As we both watched her approach, we yelled out to the others below. As she got closer, we realized she was completely naked and struggling to walk. Holy crap, we need to help her, I immediately insisted. As the fireworks continued, we hurried down to the bottom floor of the house and fled outside. A few of the others were calling out as the woman inched closer. As I walked towards her, I could see she was visibly hurt, yet she stared straight ahead, continuing her slow steps. "Oh my God, are you okay?" I asked, while everyone else silently watched with wide eyes. With each burst of fireworks above, it became increasingly clear that she had suffered some serious injuries, as she was covered in blood. She shifted her eyes to me as I slowly moved towards her and voiced out. I was mere feet away from her when she broke into a terrible cry, softly repeating, "I'm cut, I'm cut." She said it over and over. As I got close, she grabbed and latched onto me, her dead weight collapsing into my arms. She looked up and locked her eyes on mine, shaking, crying, and repeatedly saying she was cut. I turned to the others who were just frozen and called out to Jack for help. I was quite appalled by everyone's lack of reaction. This girl was obviously badly wounded and urgently needed medical attention. As Jack approached, her gaze slowly shifted to him, and immediately her eyes widened and she started to scream. She pushed away from me, rebalancing herself again, and repeatedly said, "He did it," pointing to Jack while sobbing and slowly walking backwards. Jack looked around in absolute confusion, but she just continued to backpedal while accusing him. "What the hell is she talking about?" Jack replied. Then, in a split moment, the woman turned around and dashed faster than I have seen anyone run, straight back into the trees. "We need to go find her," I insisted as I moved towards the tree line. The grand finale of the fireworks show helped several of us search the dark woods, while the rest went back to town to seek help. After a few minutes and without the guiding lights of the fireworks anymore, we realized we had to turn back. It was futile and risky to continue searching the thick brush without a flashlight. My nerves were on edge all night as I kept moving back and forth from my window, hoping to see her outside. The next day, we were informed that the woman had been found in critical condition and was being treated at our local hospital. I decided to visit her. When I entered the room, she looked at me with a confused expression and asked if she knew me. She had no recollection of the previous night. Seeing the bruises and bandages covering her cuts, I broke into tears, wondering what kind of monster could do such a thing. We finally resolved the confusion regarding Jack, understanding that she had reacted in a state of trauma. While I never truly believed he was involved, the idea was still quite disturbing. Nearly 40 years have passed since that dreadful night, but I'm reminded of it every year, whenever we gather for the 4th and lay out our blankets in anticipation of the fireworks display. The events of that terrifying night lingers in the back of my mind. My wife Olivia and I are avid outdoor adventurers. We've traveled across the United States, visiting numerous state and national parks. If I had to pick a favorite, it would be Grand Canyon National Park due to its breathtaking views and excellent hiking and rafting opportunities on the Colorado River. It's also fairly close to where I live, so maybe I'm a little biased. During one late summer afternoon in 2007, Olivia and I were on our way home from a few days spent at Great Basin National Park. The drive was just 5 to 6 hours, which felt practically in our backyard given the vast, rugged landscapes of the American western frontier. Embarking on our journey down Route 50, a lengthy and desolate highway known as the loneliest road in America, devoid of any real civilization for long stretches, we cracked open some cold sodas we had picked up at our last stop. After about an hour of driving through the relentless desert heat, we spotted a vehicle in the distance. As we drew closer, it became clear it was an old, brown, rusted truck, its decrepit frame rattling with each bump in the road. The engine sputtered, belching white smoke that filled the air with a sickening stench. Each breath made me more nauseous, adding to the growing sense of unease. As I approached the truck, I turned on my signals to pass. Just as I moved into the other lane, the truck swerved aggressively, blocking my path. My heart pounded as I returned to the right lane, only for the truck to mirror my movements. Frustrated, I honked the horn repeatedly. "What the hell is this guy's problem?" Olivia exclaimed, her voice tinged with fear. The truck's dirty, foggy windows made it impossible to see inside. It was going no faster than 40 miles per hour, which was ridiculous given the 70 miles per hour speed limit. Desperation mounting, I attempted to pass again, this time swerving onto the shoulder, gravel spraying behind us. The truck jerked towards us menacingly, but I floored the gas pedal, our car roaring past as we finally left him behind in the rearview mirror. About an hour later, we came across the small gas station and decided to fuel up after using about half our tank. Just as we were paying and walking out of the store, my stomach dropped at the sight of the old, rusted truck parked just a stone's throw away. It's as if the driver had been lying in wait, his presence a menacing shadow. I couldn't fathom how he had caught up so quickly, given his earlier sluggish pace. Olivia was voicing her concerns as we got back into our car and peeked back at the truck, barely making out the silhouette of a head inside. I then started the car and resumed our route. After several tense moments of wondering what the truck would do, it eventually pulled onto the road and started following us, though it maintained a fair distance behind. Knowing how slow that truck was, I wasn't too concerned as I cruised down the road at 80 miles per hour. Somehow, the truck not only kept up with my speed, but also closed in dangerously close, its grille looming large in my rearview mirror. It tailgated us relentlessly before slamming into our bumper. How on earth is this piece of crap truck going 90? I wondered in horror as the thick white smoke continued to pour from its hood. I increased my speed to over 100, making both Olivia and me more uncomfortable. With the temperature around 110 degrees Fahrenheit, I was worried about my car overheating, especially with the truck miraculously keeping up. After roughly 10 minutes of pushing my car to its limits, I saw another car approaching and decided to slow down completely and pull over, hoping they might notice our distress. The truck crept past us ominously as I parked on the roadside, then halted a short distance ahead, waiting. I frantically waved at the passing car, but it sped off without a second glance, leaving us feeling utterly helpless. Frustration and nervousness grew as we waited. How far would this guy go just to torment us? There is no way I would approach him. Who knows what kind of weapon he might have? He must be almost out of gas by now, right? He didn't refuel at the last station, and a truck like that must guzzle gas. After about 10 minutes, we decided to keep moving. We sped past him again, but he quickly closed in behind us. The relentless cat and mouse chase dragged on for another agonizing hour down the desolate desert road before we finally reached the small town of Hinckley, Utah. Exhausted and desperate, we stopped at the first gas station and pleaded with the clerk to contact the police. The truck lurked ominously in the distance, a constant threat, until a cop car arrived, its flashing lights sending the driver scurrying away into the darkness. I couldn't do much other than show the officer the damage to my car's tail end and describe the vehicle chasing us since it had no registered plates. The officer was kind enough to follow us all the way to the next town to ensure we weren't being followed any longer. Fortunately, we never saw that menacing truck again, but the memory lingers. Even now, I often find myself haunted by the thought of that rusted beast, wondering if it's still out there, prowling the lonely desert roads, ready to terrorize unsuspecting travelers. The open desert stretches, once a symbol of freedom, now hold an undercurrent of dread that I can never quite shake. In July of 2002, my wife Sherry and I enjoyed a wonderful time at the Wisconsin Dells, the water park capital of the world, with my brother, his wife, and their kids. Despite living just a few hours' drive away, neither of us had ever visited, so it was quite a pleasant treat. On our Sunday evening return, we stopped at a Subway to grab a couple of sandwiches for the remaining 2-hour drive home. I was really hoping to get back before dark, but since it was already nearing 8, that seemed pretty unlikely. As we drove northbound on the seemingly endless highway towards home, Sherry and I enjoyed our subs while chatting about how much fun we had over the weekend. With the windows of our truck open, we relished the perfect midsummer air. The highways were still fairly busy, but were gradually quieting down as the night approached. 2 hours and 1 restroom stop later, we neared Rhinelander, the largest city close to where we lived. We stopped in town to fill up on gas before heading to our home, which was another 20 minutes or so out in the country. Sherry surprised me with a bag of Twizzlers, my favorite snack. As I opened the bag and tossed one in my mouth, I turned the key to start our final leg of the journey. As we drove down the empty, dark, one-lane road, I encountered a detour sign directing us to take a right onto a dirt road. It struck me as odd since I wasn't aware of any construction in the area, especially since we lived just a few miles away. Whatever, I turned onto the dirt road and proceeded down it. Even though I lived nearby, I wasn't very familiar with this road and didn't know where it really led. Trees began to line the sides, making the already dark night even darker. With our windows still down, the air was filled with the sounds of frogs and crickets as we followed the detour. Sherry was starting to get creeped out by our surroundings, and I had to admit it was pretty creepy. As we cruised down a long, narrow stretch, I slowed down when I spotted some orange reflective parking cones. It was strange to see them just sitting in the middle of the road with no other way to turn. Both Sherry and I felt extra creeped out, realizing this was the end of the supposed detour. Sherry suggested we should just leave, but after driving for about 15 minutes into this detour, my curiosity got the better of me. I opened my door and got out to inspect. As soon as I walked over to the cones, I heard some rustling in the foliage nearby. I glanced back at Sherry, who was urging me to return. Then, I heard whispers coming from the trees. I stepped a little closer to where the sounds were coming from and paused for a moment. "Don, get your ass back in here," Sherry yelled out. Just before turning to look at her, I saw 2 men emerging from the dark brush and rushing towards me, both holding baseball bats and shouting. My eyes widened and my heart dropped as I quickly turned to run back to the truck. Sprinting back to the truck, I noticed another man on Sherry's side, also holding a bat and trying to open her door. Luckily, she had locked it. I managed to get into the driver's seat, but just before I could shut the door, the 2 men grabbed it and tried to hit me with their bats. The situation was chaotic. Sherry was screaming as the men tried to break in, but I swiftly shifted the truck into reverse and hit the gas pedal hard. They made a final attempt to stop us by hitting the truck with their bats as I sped away. In front of us, still illuminated by the headlights as we were reversing, were the 3 figures running to catch up. They looked to be in their mid-20s and doped up on drugs or something. When I felt we had enough distance, I turned around. Shifting into drive, I sped off, leaving them behind in the dust cloud I created. I kept glancing back into the rearview mirror, trying to catch another glimpse of them, but all I saw was the pitch black night and faint dust clouds that followed us. Sherry and I eventually made it back home, still on edge. We could never have expected that to happen, and the truly disturbing part is that it occurred only a couple miles from where we lived. Knowing there are violent people like that so close to home makes me extra cautious now.